Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Universalist Church of Yarmouth. My name is Joanna Landsman, and I serve on our board and on the Worship Council. Let me ask you a question. Has any of you ever tried to grow your bangs out and they're at that point where they're just not quite tuckable? That's where I am. I'm so glad to share this morning with you a warm welcome to friends gathered here in our sanctuary, as well as to our friends joining us on Zoom. I will say we've had some other computer issues this morning, probably not related to our internet, so apologies for the glitch. I also want to pause here to acknowledge that you may hear some congestion in my voice. It's not COVID, it's not the flu, it's not norovirus, it's a good old-fashioned head cold, which I am actually getting over. I sound worse than I actually feel. So for the remainder of the service today, I will be masked. I will refrain from singing, and I actually am handing off the worship weaving of this service to Gwen, who has so generously offered to fill in on my behalf. And so a reminder that we are very mask friendly here. In fact, I would encourage you, if you are comfortable, to do whatever is best for you. We have a box full of masks at the entry, and if you want one and didn't bring one, feel free to raise your hand, and I'm sure our wonderful ushers would be happy to bring a mask to anybody who wants one. At First Universalist, and I'm going to mask now. At First Universalist, our mission is to explore our faith, embrace this community, and to engage the world as spiritual seekers. May we take these words to heart. Meanwhile, if this is your first time in the congregation, welcome. We invite you to fill out a connection card that's located in the pew in front of you, so we may connect you with events and programs that interest you. You can drop this in the offering plate when it's passed later in our service, and we would love to send you our weekly e-newsletter called Channels. For those joining us with young children, there's nursery care available during our service for babies and toddlers. The nursery is located out this side door and down the hallway to the left. Following our service, all are invited to join a coffee hour, our time of friendship and fellowship downstairs in our gathering room. And I will not be there. Before we begin our service, I do have a couple of announcements. Number one, First U's 2023 annual campaign, We See the Finish Line. Every year, each of us, as we're able, offers a financial commitment to the church here that begins on July 1st. And this week in worship, we'll put a spotlight on our amazing stewardship committee, which is instrumental in this whole process. Where would we be without them? And next week, we will wrap up our out loud portion of this year's campaign with gratitude for all the generosity of this beautiful congregation. If you have already sent in your commitment, thank you so, so much. And if you have not yet made your commitment, please do so as soon as you're able via the confidential form on our website. Having a good sense of our resources will allow us to make good plans. So thank you. And now Pete Titcomb has an announcement.
Good morning, I'm Pete Titcomb. I have two announcements that are connected. We now have security cameras at church. On Friday morning, a camera detected a vehicle in the driveway. I checked the video recording, and it showed a pickup truck arriving with a big snowblower loaded in the back. A few minutes later, it showed that truck leaving, but carrying what looked like the aging, ready-to-retire church snowblower. The security system was working well by recording the arrival of a new snowblower generously donated by Mariana and Ben Tupper. Thank you, Mariana and Ben.
Love in action. So I now invite you to all take a deep breath as we settle into this time together. Our music director, Sam Chandler, will lead us into worship.
Good morning. My name is Gwen Matthews, and I'm going to do my best impression of Joanna this morning. Our call to worship this morning. For the past several weeks, we've been exploring how love is in action and how love comes in all shapes and sizes. Love can also, of course, be expressed and felt through the written word and through music. But when hearing the phrases love poems or love songs, many of us immediately think only of romantic love. Mushy, gushy, often flowery, perhaps wishful love, which is fine, of course. But today we will hear about love in all of its forms, be it platonic, familial, inward or outward, easy or difficult, from First Universalist authors. And we'll enjoy lovely music and sing some beloved, love-centered hymns together. I hope we'll leave here feeling intrigued and moved by the words shared with us today, and lifted by the familiar songs we share in community. And so, love, we are called to worship by the words of poet Rosemary Watola Tromer. Though I respond to my name, I am aware how completely the love of others has made me who I am, how the work of their hands is more me than the swirls of my own fingerprints. I am the project of love, the product of compassion, the sum total of kindness and sympathy. Of course, the cruelty too. Of course, the ugliness, the shame. But it is love that rises in me like yeast in the living bread. It is love I've received that stands when I stand. Love that responds when you say my name. All right, please rise in body or spirit as we sing our first hymn together this morning, hymn number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. We will be singing the first and third verses. After our hymn is done, please remain standing for our unison affirmation, which is printed in your order of service.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I keep on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes.
Okay, please remain standing. We're going to recite our unison affirmation, which is printed in your order of service. We are united in seeking to increase love with justice and to constitute a free church open to all people. Mindful of our past and drawing upon modern knowledge, we respond to the spiritual needs of persons and are devoted to the common good in community, nation, and world. We cherish the integrity of each individual and search for truth with reason as our guide. We respect differences of opinion and strive to be a democratic community. We are concerned with this world and open to the future. Please be seated. Mac, would you come up and light our chalice? So, Mac,
Yes.
our chalice reminds me of one of my favorite UU hymns.
Oh, okay.
And I want to teach it to you this morning.
All right.
And I'm hoping that all of you will help Mac learn this song too.
Yes, please help me.
Okay, so it's called This Little Light of Mine. We're just going to do the very first verse.
Okay.
What do you think? Are you ready, Mac?
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, so if you know it, sing line by line with me. And if you're learning it, sing with Mac. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll just do the first line. This little light of mine. Oh, wait, pause. We're doing it real easy for Mac, okay?
Yeah,
Line by line.
Line by line, okay.
Okay, so let's just do the first line again. And
Okay.
then Mac and everyone else who's learning it can repeat it.
Okay.
This little light of mine,
This little light of mine,
I'm gonna let it shine.
I'm gonna let it shine.
This little light of mine,
This little light of mine,
I'm gonna let it shine.
I'm gonna let it shine.
This little light of mine,
This little light of mine,
I'm gonna let it shine.
I'm gonna let it shine.
Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Good job. Thank you, everybody. There's a whole bunch more verses, but it's such a sweet hymn that we can talk about our own inner light or our chalice light.
Thank you, Gwen. That was easier than I thought.
All right, and now we're going to say our children's blessing.
We are
Unitarian Universalists, people of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands.
If you'd like to join me downstairs for Children's Chapel, we're going to be making love medallions out of clay, eating popcorn, and lighting our own chalice.
Debbie couldn't be here this morning, but you'll hear from her next week. As we spotlight stewardship this week, I have a little money story to share with you. When I wrap up the UU values, of course I see love, but also gratitude, honesty, and integrity. These are all values we practice at First U. But somehow integrity got deeply embedded in who I am, possibly from my dad. My first explicit memory of when I acted with integrity was after college. In college, I had an opportunity to study abroad, but I didn't have the money for it. My dad had died, and we were living on Social Security survivor benefits. So I took out a student loan from a local bank with all the usual terms of a loan. The trip was transformative for me. A few years later, I knew payment was due, but I had not received any notice from the bank. So I inquired, and a banker met with me, and he said, "We don't have any record of that loan." Well, I did. And coming from somewhere deep in me, I knew I had to pay back that loan. So I wrote a check to the bank. I don't know what they did with the money, but they did cash the check. And now here we are, 50 years later, If that happened today, instead of writing the check to a bank that had no record, I would write the check to a person or an entity who would appreciate it and use it well. Because, with very much gratitude, we live comfortably enough on our planned retirement income. So when something extra comes to us, like the checks from the state, we give it away. This round will go to First U as an amount additional to our annual campaign commitment. What's your integrity story? And moving on to the offering, honoring our values of justice and equity, this week we share our plate with Oasis Free Clinics, which is in Brunswick, a nonprofit, no-cost primary care medical practice and dental clinic and prescription assistance, providing patient-centered care to uninsured members of its community, including those without homes. With over 740 volunteer hours last year, they provided in excess of $500,000 of medical and dental services to over 700 patients. Today, we offer you the opportunity to support this powerful service. For those in the sanctuary this morning, we'll be passing the offering plate to one another. For those gathered with us online, you are invited to make your offering using the donate button in the order of worship. You may also make your donation by dropping a check in the mail. Now Sam will offer his gift of music while we offer our gift to church. Thank you very much.
Please join me in singing our song of thanksgiving. you for your generosity. Now is the time in our service for honoring our joys and our sorrows. We will be lighting silent candles today. If you would like to light a candle, you're invited to come up using whichever aisle is closest to you. Those of you on Zoom, you are invited to type your joys and concerns into the chat. And although we will not be reading them aloud, know that they will be held by the whole community. Please come forward if you'd wish to light a silent candle today. Please join me in a final moment of silence, honoring all the joys and sorrows we hold in our hearts. And now, we will be hearing the words of our First U friends. You may remain seated during the singing of the hymns, which will come in between our readings today. Please welcome Nancy Austin and Ben Tupper, who will be reading for Mariana Tupper this morning.
I'm going to take this opportunity to give you a little backstory on the poem that I wrote. Sister Trips. I was hired by the American School in London as a consultant and had a chance to go to London. And I told my youngest sister, since they paid for my ticket and a place to stay, she could come along and spend time with me at the end of the consulting gig. And she, of course, said yes. And she said, but there was a caveat. She'd never get away without my other sister, Marilyn. So thus, the sister trips began. This past fall, we planned a trip to Stowe, Vermont to celebrate Marilyn's 79th birthday. I would drive from Yarmouth and they would drive from Buffalo. Before I even began to pack for the trip, I began to worry about how my health issues might interfere with our plans. Then I worried whether I'd ever be able to have any more trips with my sisters. I began to write a poem about this, called it Yearning. After days of editing, the poem still wasn't okay. In the quiet of the night, I asked, would there be more sister trips? In the morning, I awoke to circling of fireflies around my head and realized the power of petition and seeing what really matters, then changed the title of the poem and the message of the poem. My poem is called Acceptance. Rising from sleep, I hold fast to a vision of tiny lights dancing in air, miracle sent from another universe, one bright with hope and possibility. How many more times will the lamp of fireflies illuminate my twilight, filling daybreak with promise? In the peace of the morning and afterglow of the pulsating light, I feel the freedom to accept the gift of this one, the one I already have, gently holding it in the palm of my hand as I might a solitary firefly on a warm summer evening. In knowing the power of petition and love, I found that my friend, Melissa Mirachi, had a poem that fit as well, and I'd like to read that here today. And Melissa's in the audience and has graciously allowed me to do so. The poem is called Petition. A prayer for now and until I die. God, for lack of a better word, let me love. Let me love the darkness and the light, the slave and the master, the rose and the thorn. Let me love the shadow of the owl, the trembling mouse, the half-nibbled seed. Let me love the blood. Let me even love myself. When I believe with all my heart that I am unlovable, even by you, God, even by you. And when I take my final breath, and when I let it go, let me love, let me love, let me love.
Good morning. My name is Ben Tupper, and I'm a very poor substitute for Mariana reading her own poetry. This was inspired by erstwhile poet laureate Billy Collins. I never get to use the word erstwhile, and I'm not really sure what it means, but it's fun to pull that one out. So Billy Collins has a knack for taking mundane, sometimes annoying things that you encounter during the day and transforming them into a moment of magic and insight into life. And so this particular poem is a love poem in the sort. It's a love of discovering a certain competency one has that one didn't know one had. And it's always a thrill. It's kind of like, discovering you didn't burn dinner. It's that kind of a thing. So here we go. Let me get my bangs out of my... One of my little jobs in this life is to change toilet paper rolls. People must know this. When the paper runs out, they leave the bare cardboard cylinder as it is, so that I may come in after them. Minutes or hours later, and cluck my tongue. Rip open the spare roll, pinch the spring-loaded thingamabob, and put the fresh roll on. It is as if I'm a custodian of every woman's room that I visit, making my rounds. People are probably waiting for me right now at the Plaza Hotel. Long lines of women backed up all the way to the Palm Court, standing with their legs crossed. But the bathroom at the gas station has my attention right now, and after this, I'm scheduled to visit the library. Some people might say, this is bad luck, how frequently I encounter the bare cylinder. But I say no. How fortuitous to find the spare roll and to know what to do with it.
Such places we can find love. Please join us in singing hymn number 95, There is More Love Somewhere. We're going to sing verses 1 and 2, and as I said before, please feel free to remain seated.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love
And now please welcome Anne Nye, who will be reading My Mother's Voice by Ken Nye.
Some of you knew Ken, and he died 10 years ago last October. And this is a poem that he wrote about his mother. My mother's voice. I don't remember wondering if a voice I faintly heard was my mother's voice or not. I always knew. Just as the fledgling albatross can pick out its mother from the thousands of lookalikes that cling to the same rock, I could pick out my mother's voice in a crowd of hundreds. Before I could talk or walk, long before I was consciously piecing the world together, my mother's voice was as integral to my world as the thunder of the surf is to the sea. The sound of comfort, security, and unconditional acceptance, my mother's voice was the serenade of my childhood, the song that began and ended each day. Mom is now in her twilight years, and the sun in my heaven is slipping toward the horizon. But I suspect that when Mom is gone, I will still hear that sound. When I too return to the eternal soul of the universe, I will be enveloped by my mother's voice, which was and is and always will be the sound of love.
Minka Haltrop wasn't able to be with us this morning, but I'll be reading her poem called Familia. Familia. Picture my mother who smells like summer, her laugh a clap so much like thunder. Picture my sister who spies the berries, skips to steal them, her eyes dancing. Picture my Va, who grows orchids in old cracked pots just for the green. Picture my Chias, who constantly bicker about whether or not to make pasta or chicken. Now close your eyes and take a photo and keep it close and don't let it go. Now we'll be singing hymn number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me. We'll be singing verses 1 and 2.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love, the rose in winter time.
Please welcome Landis Hudson.
How wonderful to see all of you today. I'm very moved to be a part of the service today. I'm going to be reading 3 pieces, 2 by my daughters, who are now 21-year-old college seniors, but I imagine many of you remember when they were squirmy little girls. And I'm also going to read a little poem that I wrote, kind of a wispy little piece about motherhood. When Joanna invited me to do this, I asked if I could read an excerpt from Pye's poem, realizing that today's service is about love. It's not lost on me that the title of Pye's book is 12 Dead Princesses. It's actually kind of a supernatural book set in an alternate universe, and I very much connect it to her time as part of this youth group. She wrote this 332-page book while she was a senior in high school as part of a program at the Telling Room. And I see certain UU themes in it. So I'm going to read a little bit from the prologue, and then the dedication, and then read a poem I wrote, and then a recent one from Lulu. So this book is a retelling of a Brothers Grimm story called 12 Dancing Princesses. And there are, in fact, 12 sick princesses. And so this is part of the prologue. It was late in the evening when he came, the air so still and humid that no one dared venture outside. And because of that, there was no one to see the man who walked out of the long shadows of the castle that stretched across the city. He did it with little fanfare, as easily if he were coming out of some unseen door and not hard, unforgiving rock. The darkness clung to him. For a moment, he turned and brushed at it with one hand, irritated as if it were some fond pet that refused to leave him alone. The shadows wavered for a moment, grasping at him with little black tendrils, and faded back to their normal shape. The man himself looked as if he were made of shadows. He was swathed in a long black robe that hid almost every detail about him, except his considerable height and a flash of blonde hair poking out of his hood. If someone had seen him, the viewer would have felt a chill go across him, as if standing in a sudden winter breeze, but no one had seen him, even though they claimed to. The stranger walked past the stoically grieving guards at the gate, past the despairing servants hurrying in the halls, past the anguished courtiers clustered in corners waiting to hear the fateful final news, and none of them saw him. They shivered when he brushed past, but the shadows cradled the stranger close and kept him invisible. Some people say that the stranger cast a spell on the regent, and others that he bribed them, and yet others that he threatened the regent with a vision of his own death if he did not unbar the doors. While those are answers that certainly make the story more dramatic, they are not the truth. The truth is this: the regent was young, not even 30, and already he had lost his parents and his elder brother, the former king. The last family he had alive lay dying behind that door. The girls whom he had raised as his own since the day the king's ship went down in a summer storm and his body washed ashore, twined with seaweed. The girls were slipping away from the regent inch by inch, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. So although spells and bribery and threats make for a wonderful story, the truth is that the stranger only had to say 4 words for the door to be unbarred to him. I can save them. Hope, once ignited, is not easily extinguished. So despite his fears, the regent allowed the stranger to see the princesses. The door was unlocked. The servants tending the girls rushed outside, and the regent vanished somewhere else to pace and wait and hope that he had made the right decision. The stranger was left alone with 12 dying girls and the promise that he could do the impossible. And the dedication to this book, written by Pi, to my sister, Lulu, who pestered / persuaded me into finishing this book. I would never have done this without you. Thank you for believing in my writing, even when I didn't. Next, I'm going to read a little poem that I wrote on apparently February 28th, 2001, when my 2 daughters were not yet 3 years old. And it's called Bedtime, and it's kind of about the time that you spend as a parent trying to learn who your children are, trying to listen to them and see the world through their eyes. So this is called Bedtime. Goat, goat, goggles, she tells me, falling asleep. Boy, boot, boy, hat, boy, coat, the nuances of a boy more than twice her size. Boy, boot, boy, hat, boy, coat, she tells me, falling asleep. And I remember him waiting at the hardware store counter, nondescript in winter clothes, his mother buying nails. She calls on his memory, vast, unknown, and entrancing. Boy, coat, boy, hat, boy, boot, boy, bye. And the last piece I'm going to read is something that I asked for from my daughter, Lulu, who is a college senior. She's a creative writing major, and both of my daughters are very prolific writers, but I don't actually get to read all that much that they produce. So I was kind of amazed to be offered to read this to you today, and this is from Lulu. It's called Dark Matter. Sometimes we would walk with the destination of nowhere, with the destination of each other, with the destination of growing twilight, hiding our shadowed smiles, but not our laughter. The most important things in our universe are invisible, undefined, energy unknown, matter unrevealed. Or the feeling of walking down Main Street past the gas station, not because we needed electric blue slushies or plastic wrapped ice cream, but because no one was willing to turn back and split off into the humid darkness. Because I wanted to tell you my favorite book when I was 9, and because I wanted to hear you describe the strange dream you had last night. Because I wanted to playfully argue about where the new Star Wars went wrong. Because no one wanted this moment to end. Because it was the kind of evening that made me think how they always say, in love, for red roses and rain-drenched kisses, for candlelight dinners and wedding rings, as if we are not in our own kind of love, as if we are not falling through its delightful galaxy, just as heady and sweet as the late summer breeze, as if we would not follow each other forever through dark streets, no one willing to be the first to leave, not when we could keep spinning this new orbit of planets among the jostle of our bodies and the delight of laughter bouncing between us like the distant sunshine off of the slow rising moon. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our poets and authors and readers this morning. Such love. We're now going to sing hymn number 1057, that is in your teal hymnal. And this time, please rise in body or spirit as we sing our closing hymn. It's 10:57, Go Lift It Up.
Go lift it up, love bless your way. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace and the brightness of day.
Please be seated. Together, let's take a deep, refreshing breath in and a cleansing breath out, and receive these words by Rebecca Parker as a parting blessing. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding you. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. May it be so. Please join me in reciting our unison benediction. The words are printed in your order of worship. For those who come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those who come embracing life, may life return your affection. For those who come to seek a path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step. Please remain seated as Sam plays our postlude. Thank you, Sam.